The silverware clinked against expensive china as my family gathered for our monthly dinner at my parents' house. I pushed my food around my plate, trying to ignore the familiar tension in the air. My brother Marcus, as always, commanded everyone's attention with stories about his corporate success. And then, he gestured with his wine glass, I closed the deal right there. $2 million in commission. He smirked in my direction. How's your little shop doing, Emma? I took a slow sip of water, remembering the morning's meeting with my accountant. My little shop had just cleared 8 figures in quarterly revenue, but they didn't need to know that. Not yet. It's fine, I said quietly, used to downplaying my success. I'd learned long ago that my achievements didn't matter in this family. Not when Marcus was the golden child. Just fine. He laughed, sharing a knowing look with our parents. Still playing shop with your little company? You know, there's always a junior position open at Anderson Corp if you want a real job. Mom nodded enthusiastically. That would be wonderful. Working with your brother at such a prestigious company. I'm happy with my business, I replied, gripping my fork tighter. They had no idea that my little shop, Eclipse Technologies, had revolutionized supply chain management software. We operated under a different name and I'd kept my involvement quiet for years. Dad cleared his throat. Emma, honey, it's time to be realistic. You're 32. Marcus was already a vice president at your age. And now I'm the youngest senior VP in Anderson Corp's history, Marcus added, raising his glass. Sometimes you have to admit when something isn't working. I thought about the folder sitting on my desk at home. The one containing the final paperwork for the acquisition I'd been orchestrating for months. Anderson Corp had been bleeding market share for years, their outdated systems barely keeping them afloat. Tomorrow, their board would announce the company's sale to a mysterious tech giant. Maybe you're right, I said softly, watching Marcus's satisfied smile grow. Maybe it's time for a change. Finally. Mom clapped her hands. Marcus, can you talk to HR about? Actually, I cut in, standing up. I should go. I have an early meeting tomorrow. On a Saturday? Marcus scoffed. With your little online shop? Come on, Emma. Stop pretending you're some big shot CEO. I grabbed my purse, kissing Mom's cheek. Good night, everyone. Marcus, enjoy your evening. Tomorrow's going to be interesting. What's that supposed to mean? He called after me, but I was already walking out the door. In my car, I finally let out the breath I'd been holding. My phone buzzed, a text from my assistant. Final contract signed. Board meeting scheduled for 9 a.m. I smiled, thinking of Marcus's smug face. He had no idea that his precious Anderson Corp had been struggling for months. No idea that their CEO had been secretly meeting with me, begging for a buyout before the company collapsed. No idea that his little sister was about to become his boss. Tomorrow, Eclipse Technologies would go public with its acquisition of Anderson Corporation. Tomorrow, Marcus would learn that his successful company had been bought by the very sister he'd spent years mocking. I started my car, remembering all the family dinners I'd endured, all the condescending comments and dismissive looks. Just wait, big brother, I whispered. Tomorrow's meeting is going to be quite a show. As I drove home, I thought about how it all started. 10 years ago, when I left my prestigious corporate job to start my own company. Marcus had laughed the loudest then, telling everyone how his little sister was throwing away her future on a pipe dream. I arrived at Anderson Corp's headquarters at exactly 8:45 a.m., dressed in a crisp black suit that cost more than Marcus's monthly salary. The security guard smiled as he handed me my visitor badge. He had no idea I'd soon be signing his paychecks. The elevator ride to the executive floor was quiet, but my heart pounded with anticipation. Through the glass walls, I could see the board members filing into the conference room. Marcus stood near the door, laughing with his usual air of superiority. I heard it's some tech company, I overheard him telling a colleague. Probably another startup trying to play in the big leagues. We'll show them how real business is done. If only he knew. I waited in the adjacent office as instructed by CEO David Thompson. He'd been desperate when he first approached me 6 months ago, admitting that Anderson Corp was hemorrhaging clients due to their outdated systems. When I showed him Eclipse Technologies software, he'd practically begged me to buy them out. Emma, David greeted me quietly, slipping into the office. Everything's ready. The board's assembled. Are you sure you want to handle this personally? I could announce the acquisition. I shook my head. I've waited 10 years for this moment, David. Some things you need to do yourself. He nodded, understanding. Your brother. He has no idea, does he? None. I smoothed my jacket. Shall we? The conference room fell silent as David entered. Marcus sat up straighter, probably expecting another announcement about his inevitable promotion. I stayed just outside listening. Ladies and gentlemen, David began, as you know, Anderson Corp has faced significant challenges in recent years. Today, I'm announcing that we've been acquired by Eclipse Technologies. Murmurs filled the room. Marcus's voice rose above them. Eclipse? That small software company? This is ridiculous. We're Anderson Corp. Eclipse Technologies, David continued, has revolutionized supply chain management. Their systems are 10 years ahead of ours. This acquisition will save thousands of jobs. But who are they? Marcus demanded. Some garage startup? That was my cue. I stepped into the conference room, my heels clicking against the marble floor. Actually, we're the company that's kept you employed for the past year. The coffee cup Marcus had been holding slipped from his fingers, shattering on the floor. His face drained of color as recognition dawned. Emma, he whispered. Hello, brother. I smiled, taking my place at the head of the table. Or should I say employee? The room erupted in whispers. Marcus's colleagues stared between us, putting together the pieces. The sister he'd mocked at dinner parties was now their boss. This is impossible, Marcus stuttered. Your little online shop. Eclipse Technologies, I corrected him, currently values at $4.2 billion. We've been quietly acquiring failing companies like Anderson Corp, modernizing their systems and saving jobs. I turned to address the board. Except usually I don't handle these meetings personally. But for family. I met Marcus's shocked eyes. I made an exception. David handed me the final contract. Mrs. Thompson, everything's ready for your signature. Thank you. I pulled out my pen, aware of Marcus watching my every move. Oh, and it's Ms. Wilson. Or ma'am will do just fine. As I signed the papers that made me owner of my brother's company, I thought about last night's dinner. About all the dinners before that. About every time Marcus had laughed at my little shop. The contract was done. I stood, addressing the silent room. I'll be conducting performance reviews next week. For now, return to your duties. Except you, Marcus. We need to discuss your position. Marcus followed me into what was now my office, his expensive suit wrinkled, his usual confidence shattered. He collapsed into the chair across from my desk, staring at me like he was seeing a stranger. How? He finally managed. All these years. I leaned back in the CEO's chair. My chair now. Remember when I quit Jensen and Partners to start my little online shop? You told everyone I was having a quarter-life crisis. He flinched at the memory. Emma, I worked 18-hour days, I continued calmly. Built my company from scratch while you bragged about your corporate expense account. Every family dinner, every holiday I listened to you mock my choices. Even last night. If I had known. That's exactly it, Marcus. You should have supported me without knowing. That's what family does. I opened my laptop, pulling up Anderson Corp's financial records. Your company was 3 months from bankruptcy. Your brilliant leadership strategy cost hundreds of people their jobs. Did you know that? He shook his head, face pale. David said we were restructuring. David was trying to save what he could. Lucky for everyone, my little shop stepped in. I closed the laptop. Now about your position. Marcus straightened, his old arrogance flickering. I'm Senior VP. My contract is void under new ownership, I finished. But I'm not firing you, Marcus. That would be too easy. Relief flooded his face, quickly replaced by suspicion. Then what? You're being reassigned. Entry level. Software development department. Entry level? He jumped up. You can't be serious. I'm your brother. Exactly. I stood, meeting his eyes. And as your sister, I'm giving you what you never gave me. A chance to prove yourself. You'll start from the bottom, learn our systems, earn your position. This is revenge, he accused. No, Marcus. This is business. But since you mentioned revenge. I picked up my phone, dialing. Are you with Dad? Good. Could you come to Anderson Corp? There's something you should know about my little shop. An hour later, my parents sat stunned in my office as I explained everything. How their dismissed daughter had built a multi-billion-dollar company. How their precious son had nearly bankrupted his. All those times we pushed you to get a real job. Mom whispered, tears in her eyes. All those dinner parties where we bragged about Marcus. Dad couldn't even finish. I handed them each a folder. These are your retirement portfolios. I've been anonymously managing them for years. You're both set for life. Why? Marcus asked quietly. Why help us after how we treated you? Because that's what family does, I replied. The real question is, what will you do with your second chance? 2 years later, I sat in that same office reviewing quarterly reports. Marcus had surprised everyone, including himself. Starting from scratch, he'd discovered a talent for software development. Without his inflated title and ego, he actually learned to listen, to innovate. My phone buzzed, a text from Mom. Don't forget dinner tonight. Marcus is bringing his new project proposal. I smiled, remembering those painful family dinners of the past. Now they were different. Now we talked about real achievements, not empty boasting. Now my parents proudly told their friends about both their children's successes. My assistant knocked. Ms. Wilson? The board is ready for you. I gathered my papers, pausing at a new photo on my desk, our last family dinner. Everyone smiling genuine smiles. Success was sweeter when you earned it. But family was sweeter when it was real. Coming, I said, straightening my jacket. My company had grown beyond even my dreams, but the greatest achievement wasn't the money or the power. It was the brother who finally saw me as an equal. The parents who learned to believe in me. The family that finally became what it should have been all along. Sometimes the biggest success isn't in proving others wrong. It's in giving them the chance to prove themselves right. As I walked into the boardroom, I caught Marcus's eye. He nodded respectfully, a genuine smile on his face. Morning, ma'am. I smiled back. Good morning, Mr. Wilson. Shall we begin?